Hey everybody, this is Nate Charles from Charles International Law. Welcome back to another episode of the Rule of Law Brief. Before I begin, I need to say something clearly. Nothing in this video is based on my opinion. Everything I'm about to say comes directly from U.S. law, Supreme Court precedent, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and public reporting. This isn't speculation. This isn't partisan analysis. This is the law. And this is personal for me. I learned the difference between lawful and unlawful orders within my first week at the U.S. Naval Academy. That place, the Yard in Annapolis, is one of the most sacred places that I know outside of my family. It's where my wife and I both graduated more than 20 years ago. It's where our public service careers began. And in that very first week, the Academy sat us down and taught us the foundation of American military leadership. They told us, you will obey lawful orders, but also you will refuse unlawful orders, and you will be held criminally responsible if you fail to know the difference. They made us study the My Lai massacre, what happened when service members abandoned their duty to recognize manifest illegality. It was the first leadership lesson I ever received in uniform. So when Democratic lawmakers, many of them veterans themselves, recently reminded today's service members of this exact legal and ethical obligation, and then Republicans responded by calling it sedition, treason, or a call for rebellion, that reaction by the Republicans wasn't just wrong. It revealed how little those critics understand about the U.S. military or the Constitution they claim to defend. So let's be precise. Let's lay out exactly what the law requires. The foundation of American military service is the oath. An oath not to a president, not to a political party, not to a chain of command, but to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Period. The Uniform Code of Military Justice reinforces that oath. It makes it a crime to disobey lawful orders, and it makes it a crime to obey manifestly illegal ones. That tension is intentional. It's built into the command structure. Orders can be unlawful in two primary ways. They can be orders that violate the Constitution. Examples include orders to suppress lawful political speech, orders to conduct warrantless domestic arrests, orders to use military force against peaceful civilians, and orders that violate equal protection or due process. Those orders are illegal on their face. They could also be orders that violate federal statutes or the customary laws of war. Examples include orders to target civilians, orders to torture detainees, orders to falsify official reports or intelligence, or orders that violate treaties or the laws of war. Those are categorically illegal. The legal test is pretty straightforward. The question isn't whether the officer disagrees with the wisdom of the order. The question is whether the order on its face violates the law. And the courts have helped clarify those duties. In 1946, in In Re Yamashita, the U.S. Supreme Court stated that commanders can be criminally responsible for atrocities, even if they don't personally give the unlawful orders. In 1954, in United States v. Kinder, the U.S. Supreme Court held that troops are not expected to parse legal technicalities under stress, but they must recognize obvious illegality. Arguably the worst case was United States v. Cali in 1973. In that case, the courts upheld the concept that orders to kill unarmed civilians are palpably illegal and no serviceman may obey them. Then again, in 2001, within my time in the service, in the United States v. New, the courts upheld the idea that refusing an order is justified only when the unlawfulness is clear on its face. The Manual for Courts Martial, specifically Rule 916D, emphasizes this point. Obedience is a defense unless the order is one that a person of ordinary sense and understanding would know is unlawful. So the doctrine is unambiguous. Obedience is no shield when the order itself is unlawful. That's what the Democrats were reminding the military of. That's what I learned in my first week at Annapolis. And that is the bedrock of civil-military relations in a constitutional republic like the United States. And now Republicans are calling that message sedition, which is either ignorant or, more likely, deliberately misleading to the public. Republican politicians rushed to declare that the Democrats' video was seditious. That accusation collapses instantly under the slightest legal scrutiny. Historically, sedition was a catch-all charge used to criminalize political dissent under English common law. The United States rejected that approach more than 200 years ago. Modern American sedition law is extraordinarily narrow, and for damn good reason. Because of the First Amendment, federal sedition statutes are interpreted through the lens of Brandenburg v. Ohio, which requires that, 1, speech must be intended to incite imminent lawless action, and 2, the speech must be likely to produce imminent lawless action. Political warnings, criticisms, disagreement, or advocacy, even of objectively offensive concepts, do not even come close. Under 18 U.S.C. Section 2383, Section 2384, and Section 2385, sedition requires the use of force or violence, or a conspiracy to use force or violence, or advocacy of imminent, violent overthrow. A 1-minute video reminding troops of their legal obligations fails every element of those statutes egregiously. Calling that sedition is legally indefensible, constitutionally illiterate, and politically reckless. Republican officials have now demanded that if Democrats believe Donald Trump has been issuing unlawful orders, they should be forced to identify them publicly. Fine. Here's an inexhaustive list. 1. Illegal domestic deployment of federal troops. Trump deployed federal officers and troops in states, including Los Angeles and Portland, without state consent and in defiance of federal court limits. It was in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act, state sovereignty, the Constitution of the United States, and lawful judicial orders. 2. ICE arrest quotas, requiring thousands of daily detentions without individualized suspicion. The White House ordered ICE to hit daily arrest quotas. The result? 65% of the detainees had no criminal convictions whatsoever, despite claims to the contrary by the White House. 93% had no violent convictions. Arresting people to satisfy a quota violates the 4th and 5th Amendments. That is an illegal order. The Pentagon gag order blocking communications with Congress. The Hedgeseth-Feinberg memo required all congressional communications to be routed through political handlers and threatened discipline for unauthorized contact. Congressional oversight is a constitutional mandate. Ordering DoD personnel to ignore the Constitution is an illegal obstruction order. 4. Unauthorized military strikes in the Caribbean. Trump ordered Navy forces to conduct kinetic operations without complying with the War Powers Resolution. No president can lawfully bypass Congress on the use of force. 5. National Security Presidential Directive 7, treating political dissent as terrorism. NSPD 7 branded anti-fascist organizing as a terrorism predicate and directed federal agencies to target political movements. That violates the First Amendment and the Brandenburg Standard. 6. An illegal shutdown order raiding $8 billion from the federal treasury. Trump ordered the Department of Defense to pay troops using billions of dollars Congress never appropriated for that purpose. That violates the Anti-Deficiency Act and is patently criminal. 7. Orders suppressing political speech. Trump's administration issued directives discouraging military members from criticizing political actors, pressured the FCC to target comedians who were acting as critics of their policies, and threatening investigations of journalists. Government retaliation against protected speech is arguably the worst of the unconstitutional acts. 8. Unlawful ICE raids on protected sensitive locations. Trump's quota-driven orders led ICE officers to conduct warrantless arrests at schools, churches, hospitals, and immigration offices. These actions violated DHS policy, due process, and the 4th Amendment. And this is just a sample of what's already been documented. So let's recap what actually happened. Democratic lawmakers reminded the military of its duty, its legal duty, to obey lawful orders and refuse unlawful ones. Republicans responded by calling that message sedition. But under American law, it's not sedition to tell the truth. It's not sedition to cite the Constitution. It's not sedition to warn against illegal commands. And it's definitely not sedition to expect the military to follow the rule of law. If anyone finds obedience to the Constitution threatening, the problem is not the Constitution. The problem is them. That's the conversation this country needs to have. And it begins by telling the truth about what the law actually requires. And this is a warning for any of my colleagues who continue to support the Trump administration. I don't care if you went to the Naval Academy with me. I don't care if you wore the trident with me. I don't care if you were standing next to me in combat. If you continue to support an administration that is breaking the Constitution in half, you are my fucking enemy. And I will treat you as such from now on.